Hello and welcome to the Services Australia podcast. Has someone tried to scam you recently? How did they do it? Was it an email or a text message, or did they call you? Today we're talking about a topic that we all need to be aware and vigilant about: scams. Unfortunately, there are criminals out there that pretend to be government agencies. You may have experienced this yourself in the form of a text message or an email that can look and sound official, but it's not. General Manager Hank Jongan is here with me today to talk about this and what you can do to identify and protect yourself from scams. Hi there, Hank.
Hi, it's a real pleasure to be here.
We hear so much about scams these days, and especially ones that impersonate government agencies like Services Australia and myGov. Why is this becoming more of an issue?
Well, it's becoming more of an issue simply because of the amounts of money that are being scammed. Globally, it's estimated that over $1 trillion US is lost through scams. Now, that's an inconceivable figure when
Absolutely.
You think about it.
Incredible.
In Australia alone, 500,000 scams over a 12-month period, totalling about $2.03 billion. And again, these are huge numbers. And of course, in Services Australia, because we're not immune, we detected and responded to over 15,000 unique agency impersonation scams in the last financial year. And these scams are increasingly becoming more and more sophisticated with the introduction of the use of AI.
I guess that's the thing, isn't it? They're becoming more and more sophisticated and look more and more real. But some people still feel like they're not going to be scammed. They feel like they know what to do, they can spot them, they'll be fine. Do you think anyone should feel confident that they can spot a scam?
No, that's the simple answer. We don't want people to be scared of scams, but you do need to be wary and protect yourself, and especially your personal information. That's what these scammers are after. And it's important to remember that they target all sectors of the community. Scams aren't just targeting your intelligence, but they use psychological tactics as well, such as fear, a sense of urgency, or building trust in order to exploit people. So you really need to be attuned to that.
I guess that's it, isn't it? A lot of thought is put into these scams. So let's have a look at some examples.
Action required. Account notice. We have detected unusual activity linked to your myGov. To prevent disruption, please log in at the link below and confirm your details.
So, Hank, I've seen these sorts of emails in my personal inbox a lot.
Yep.
I think the thing that jumps out at me when I do, it's that unusual activity linked to your myGov account, and then that idea of clicking a link. What is it to you, do you think, that should be jumping out at people?
Look, those points that you make are absolutely crucial in terms of preventing scams. But the first thing I'd say is that the other thing this attempt at a scam has done is it creates a sense of urgency or a requirement to respond immediately by enticing you to take immediate action by saying that your account is at risk. And again, these sorts of scams often will include a link in the body of an email or text. And it almost looks identical to an official communication. Never, ever click on one of those blue highlighted links. It can take you anywhere. And the objective then is to get you to disclose your personal information. And that's all the scammer's trying to do. This is what's called a phishing expedition because they're trying to entice you. They create a sense of urgency. You respond. You click on a link. And then before you know it, you provide information that is the key to what they're looking for.
I guess that's it. If in doubt, just don't click it. Ever.
Absolutely.
Just never.
Absolutely. If you have the slightest doubt.
Yep.
And in fact, look, one of the other things that I would always say is count to 10. and just think about, is this genuine? And particularly, look, firstly, of course, I'd encourage you to ignore any link in an email. But secondly, have a look at that link and you'll see that it doesn't go, for example, to an official government website. An official website like Services Australia has a .gov.au attached to it. And scammers generally you'll find that the website bears no resemblance to that, or that there's a key change. For example, there may be a gap between the G and the O of the gov, simple little things like that. But my ultimate advice, ignore it. Ignore a link. Ignore
and delete it. And I guess,
absolutely. Yeah. That's right.
And I guess that's the thing. So that's a great tip. How really should we stay ahead of scammers? Are there some steps we should take?
Oh, look, the first, never react quickly to a message. As I said before, count to 10, take a good look at what it is that you're going to follow, and, check and ask yourself, is this genuine? And if it doesn't look genuine, if there's something, for example, often a link will have a gobbledygook address in it, or it may not take you to an official website. But even there's a risk because they can make a website look like the real thing. And you need to protect yourself with the strongest security settings to protect your account. I always encourage people, for example, in relation to myGov, to use a passkey, because what you're doing in that situation is you're using the security of your mobile phone and the security of the myGov website. The two need to interact in order for you to access your information.
So that's 3 simple actions really, isn't it, Hank? Stop. Take a minute, count to 10, as you say, before you do anything. Check the email addresses, have a think about it. Is it really a genuine thing or not? And then I guess that third thing is to add the layer of protection with checking reviewing your security regularly and using passkeys and digital IDs.
Absolutely. And look, there's an additional component to this, particularly in relation to government agencies, and that's myGov itself. I always encourage people to register with myGov, and if you can, register with a passkey, because the beauty of using myGov is that, for example, Services Australia will then communicate with you by sending you emails to your myGov inbox behind the protection of your myGov security. And that is the best way to avoid scammers in relation to government information. We will never send you an email with a link. We will never send you a text message with a link. If you register with myGov, we write you in your myGov inbox, and the only communication you'll receive from us, either via email or via text, is an alert to say there is a message in your myGov inbox.
Yeah, that's a great tip. And that's where you go to the myGov inbox. And I guess if you get a message and you're not sure, just go to your myGov inbox.
Absolutely.
Don't click the link, delete it, go and check your myGov inbox if you're worried.
That's absolutely right.
Yep. Now, you mentioned digital IDs and passkeys. That's obviously an important thing. Can you explain to us a bit more about that?
Sure. Look, many people think that their password is safe. But every day, accounts can be compromised. For example, you may have written your password on a bit of paper somewhere and, someone picks that up. Or you may have told family and friends. There's a myriad of ways that your password can be compromised. By using a passkey, you're creating a unique encrypted digital key that's stored safely on your device. That's what I mean by saying that it uses the security of your device to link with the security of myGov, and it is by far one of the safest way to protect all of your information. There are other things if you don't have the equipment, but if you can create a passkey, it is the best way.
And what about a digital ID?
Well, of course, a digital ID is also very secure, and I wouldn't discourage you from using that because, again, it is a very safe way to protect your information. It's just that a passkey gives you that slight degree of extra protection.
So the example we played and the things we've talked about so far is about people experiencing identity theft rather than being hacked. I suppose they're the two terms that we think about.
Yeah.
What are the difference between those two things?
Yeah, look, the two words scams and hacks are often used interchangeably, but actually they're quite different. A scam is where someone's attempting to get your personal information, like your sign-in details or your password or your account bank details or any other personal information. And that is what's called identity theft as well. But what it means is that you have provided that information. A hack, on the other hand, involves someone accessing an account or breaking into a system by exploiting a system vulnerability or using techniques to guess or bypass your passwords. And there have been some examples of hacks in relation to some major corporations here in Australia, where the failing has not been on the customer's part, but in fact someone has broken into the databases of major organisations.
These types of things can happen to anyone. And I don't know about you, Hank, but I certainly know people who have been caught out by scams. And it is a very difficult thing because there isn't a level of embarrassment and shame if you do accidentally click something or give away something that you shouldn't. Do you think people should feel embarrassed about this?
Absolutely not. And look, I know I'm sounding all wise and all knowing. I've actually been suckered into a scam myself. Fortunately, I was able to very quickly retreat out of it. But again, it required me to contact my bank and get a new card issued because inadvertently I'd done it. So you should never feel embarrassed about it.
So what should people do?
Okay, look, if you've given your personal information to a scammer, and especially if you're worried about your Services Australia records or myGov, then immediately contact our Scams and Identity Theft Help Desk. And the number for that is 1800 941126, because our help desk can then check your records for any suspicious activities and add security measures to prevent unauthorised access. So it's really important if you notify us straight away. We also have information on our website, servicesaustralia.gov.au, to help protect you from scams, including other examples of scams that pretend to be by us targeting our customers. So if you go to servicesaustralia.gov.au/scams or simply look for scams, it'll take you there. Now, the other thing to do is go to the overall government scams information site, which is ScamWatch. ScamWatch, one word, .gov.au.
Reporting scams is important, isn't it? I think for some people, the volume of them seems ridiculous. Do we report them all? Is it important to report them?
Look, if you've received a scam that impersonates Services Australia or myGov, then please report it. And the best way to report it is to simply write to us via email to report a scam. One word, report a scam at servicesaustralia.gov.au. Because we do take these scams seriously. We will review it and take any action to disrupt those scams that are reported to us. It's also important to report social media profiles that impersonate our agency and staff. And you can check if you are following our genuine social media accounts by going to servicesaustralia.gov.au. I keep repeating that because that's the important address.
Yeah, it is.
And you can then search for social media as well.
So I've also heard about misinformation and clickbait. So are they scams as well? Is that something that would be considered a scam?
Yeah, look, we're seeing more clickbait and more misleading information. Now, clickbait and misleading information are again different to scams. Clickbait tries to grab attention by using grab headlines, or what we call clickbait, to encourage people to visit their website. And the more people go to that website, the more money the clickbait page generates. It's not necessarily aiming at getting you to give personal information, but it still poses a bit of a threat, to be honest. The best way to ensure you're not going to a clickbait site is to go to a genuine Services Australia site, serviceaustralia.gov.au or myGov, my.gov.au. And here's another hint. If you're looking to enter into your myGov account, type it yourself. Type my.gov.au. Don't ever follow a link to myGov.
That's a great tip, Hank. Thank you. Let's have a look at a clickbait example so we can see what we're talking about.
Centrelink special payment. Who gets the $750 and when?
And I guess what they're really asking for us to do there is to click on it, or we might miss our next payment.
That's absolutely right. And obviously that's quite misleading. Now, there's two elements in relation to this. Firstly, of course, it's attracted you to a clickbait site, and that could potentially take you anywhere. But secondly, it's also causing an increase in unnecessary customer inquiries to Services Australia because people feel they're getting conflicting information. So I just want to reinforce that point, and that is to use our websites, servicesaustralia.gov.au or my.gov.au, because they are the genuine sites, and the big indicator is the use of the .gov.au.
We've talked a lot about what people can do to protect themselves from scams. What is Services Australia doing to fight scams?
Well, look, I just want to reiterate, of course, the use of myGov within this, because myGov provides you with a very high level of security, and it ensures that any communication from us is behind the protection of your myGov login. But we're also working with the National Anti-Scam Centre, a range of different government partners and law enforcement agencies in order to be part of a whole of government community approach to fight scamming, because it's a key part of how we resist the introduction of more and more sophisticated scamming attempts. Of course, we've already talked about the use of pass keys. That's also an important element of protecting your information. And, I can just assure you that this is an ongoing and constant priority for us to do what we can to detect and disrupt scam impersonation websites and, of course, scamming and phishing expeditions.
And I think that's it, isn't it? The message is scams are evolving, and they're evolving quickly. So we really always need to stay alert, and that's what really matters. In terms of a quick recap, let's just remember those 3 simple steps. So stop. As you said, Hank, count to 10. Think before you do anything. Check that it's a genuine email, text message or phone call. And then protect. So use those methods of protection that we've talked about to protect your personal information. Anything else that we should be doing?
Oh, look, I think we've reiterated all the key points. If you can use a pass key, I can't say that more frequently.
And I guess that's the thing, just set it up. It's not that hard to do it. You can go to your myGov account and set it up pretty easily.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. And remember, type in my.gov.au.
Yes, we'll remember. Typing only, no clicking. Well, thanks, Hank. It's been great to talk to you about it today and getting you to go through all of this with us and helping us remember what we need to do to protect our information. And thank you to people out there listening or watching us on YouTube. And remember, please follow or subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. And until next time, Hank, we'll see you then.
Real pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.